in the age of coronavirus, I actually think self-care is not enough. I think we need to move into collective care, and that's really because the failures of government and the failures of our healthcare system. And we also need to recognize that the best way to support others is by doing our best to stay healthy and stay at home.
Hi everyone, my name is Ecleen Luzmila and I'm an editor at Remezcla, and I'm here with Favianna Rodriguez, who's in Oakland, California right now. She is an artist, she is an activist, and she is the president of the Center for Cultural Power. So we're just going to talk a little bit about self-care. First of all, I think, we're talking about self-care. I think naturally it's about yourself, but you're very much like other people oriented around like how to best help other people. And I think that's something that we shouldn't lose still, even though we are very isolated right now. So I'd love to start there and get your point of view on, like, first of all, what you're still doing, and how we can help from home.
So what has changed for me actually is prioritizing my health, because in the past I used to sleep, 6 hours, 7 hours, and now lack of sleep debilitates the immune system. And I also have to be aware of making sure I'm getting enough nutrients. I'm vegan, so I have to make sure that I'm eating right and sleeping right, precisely because I do have to show up for a lot of people. I'm an activist, and we've never before had an opportunity like what we have now, which is really to demand the things that even 3 weeks ago may have seemed out of this world, like universal basic income and free healthcare for all and housing for all and releasing prisoners. In general, I'm doing my best to make sure that I stay healthy and build my immune system, and also staying home so that I don't infect others.
Right. Right. That's like something we can all easily do.
Totally.
How are you? So in terms of like asking for those things that, like you mentioned, that we've been fighting for forever, but that we were told for so long weren't possible, but clearly they are, right? Like how are you like pushing that forward now? And are there like petitions and things that we can sign and do to be more involved ourselves?
Yes. So right now is such an important time for artists, because as artists, we help create that which is not visible, right? So we help to make the impossible possible through our images, our songs, our movies. And I think that right now is an important time for artists to be showing us the future that we want. What does a world look like without prisons and detention centers? What does a world look like in which everyone is taken care of, in which everyone can get testing, right? What does the world look like in which we actually value and recognize the work of taking care of our families, which for centuries has been unpaid labor that mostly women do? And now that there's no sports and so many straight men are stuck at home with their families, you know, the job of caring for the family is something that involves all of us, but it's also important labor. So I think the most important thing to do, one, is to share the calls out that organizations are doing, whether that's around releasing prisoners or releasing people from ICE detention or demanding moratoriums on rent, or ensuring that people can make phone calls from prison. There's so many campaigns out there right now. You just have to follow your favorite organization. There's a lot of new demands for climate change, but just stay active, because the more that we can put out these conversations into the public realm, the more that politicians are going to have to respond, right? Because we don't want to bail out CEOs. We don't want the rich to be bailed out. This is actually a time, I've never thought this would have happened in my lifetime, but it's the first time where we're talking about the responsibility of one of the richest countries in the world to take care of its people, to look out for our health, because our health is really all we have.
Right. Right. It's the most basic
Of
request,
course.
you know? So what are you doing, I feel like this might be the case all the time, but especially now there's like it's an exciting opportunity, but it's also like a
Totally.
wait, it's like a new a new added pressure to really
It
see
is.
all of this through. How are you handling that, the mental health aspect of that, also like staying active
Yeah.
and taking care of
Well,
yourself?
that's a great question, and I have some great tips for that. So first, um, because I'm vegan, I really love vegetables and I love what the earth gives us. I don't believe in eating animals. And in the past, I would have all my gardener friends help me put in my urban garden, and now I have to do that myself. So I'm actually reconnecting with earth. I think that when you put your hands into the soil, you really find a different relationship to earth. So now that folks are stuck at home, you can observe where the sun comes up, where it goes down. If you have a windowsill, you can put a little seed into dirt and start growing some herbs, some cilantro. You could experiment with that because we're moving into spring, and y'all, we're getting back into our basic survival,
Yeah.
really. And our grandparents knew how to grow stuff. So I'm doing that. I'm connecting again with growing my food, growing kale, squash. Um, I just put in also some chard, collard greens, tomatoes, because we are in the spring season. The second thing is I'm also self-partnered, aka single, and that's been super interesting. I also don't have kids; I have dogs, but I've been making sure that I really prioritize my pleasure. And so on my Instagram, I talk a lot about orgasm. I talk a lot about sex toys. Now is a great time to explore your body, especially whether or not you are in a relationship, because when you have an orgasm and when you feel good, you're actually creating chemicals in your brain that help you be resilient. And I mean, we want to have fun too. Like, part of it is also taking full responsibility for our joy at a time when we can't go out. The other thing I'm doing is I've tried to meditate for the longest, and I always
It's
find an excuse
hard.
not to do it.
Yeah,
But
sometimes to like shut down, like, that can be hard.
yeah, but easing the mind is so important right now. And so there's a lot of meditation folks of color. There's this really cool person I follow. His name is Light Watkins, who wrote the book Bliss More. And so I'm trying to follow more yoga instructors of color, really trying to just find better ways to handle all the noise in my head.
Yeah.
Um, I also stopped drinking alcohol for the time that we are sheltered at home because, one, alcohol is not good for the immune system. But I also just felt that it was probably just not a good idea for me to just escape in that. I definitely been engaging. I'm in California, so we have a lot of edibles. I've cut down on smoking weed because I really need to watch out for my respiratory system. And so
Okay.
just, rethinking the pleasures in life and also making better decisions, because, I mean, the thing with alcohol is that I always feel dehydrated. And actually, right now is a great time to drink a lot of liquids as well.
Yes, back to our roots in every way. Water,
Yeah.
water, plants. I love the plants behind you. Are
Yeah,
they all?
I also actually I'm going in with my plants, right?
Yeah.
Repotting them. And why is because, like, at a very basic level, plants show us how to take care of life. And
Mm,
right now we're dealing with a lot of death. And when you are responsible for life, whether it's caring for animals, caring for elders, caring for plants, it just shifts. It's very relaxing to be able to see, oh, a little new leaf has come out, or I need to water my plants now. And I think, like, we're never going to get this opportunity again. And while it's hard, it's also a gift because the entire world is slowing down. I mean, one thing I'm realizing is just like I was on hyper speed, and I was like, yup, I'm in New York one day, I'm in Portland the next. And now I'm like, you know what? I actually feel good to just rest, and everyone else is in the same boat. We have to just slow down. And I think that it's an opportunity right now for us to reset. We don't have to go back to normal. I don't think most people are going to be able to go back to
right.
normal
And I
because
don't think
this
we
is what
want to,
changed us.
right?
No, we don't. We don't. And so I really encourage you to set boundaries. Like, have your morning routine. Don't do the first thing, don't get on email. Because the other thing is, because there's a lot of urgency, and the news is all over, of
Yeah.
course, there's the tendency for it to infect every single part of you. But now we have the opportunity to create new habits. And I was thinking about that last night, because I was like, yo, why am I checking my email up until 1 a.m.? And like, this is not sustainable. Like, actually, if I create a new habit, we still got 2 more weeks of sheltered in place in Cali.
Yeah.
So,
And that's
it's a
the
good
case
time to
with,
start.
right. Yeah. And that's the case too with like social media. It can apply to so much where we just feel like super hyper connected and like on tech all the time. And now's the time to maybe like
Mhm.
back and push away from that a little bit. And like you said, create new habits. That is like a really good way to think of this time. And so you are an artist, you're a creative, that artwork behind you is yours. It's
That's
beautiful.
right.
Are you still painting, drawing, tapping into that side
Absolutely.
of yourself? Are you doing it more? Like, how does your routine look like now in terms of
Yeah,
creating?
I actually have. So I have a daily journal, and I like screenshot a lot of the things that I like. Like, occasionally I'll hear or I'll see something really cool on social media, or I'll read something, or I'll see what another artist is doing, like Yo Yo Ma, who's doing songs of comfort, and I'm like, oh, I want to do images of comfort. And so I kind of keep like a daily journal where I'm just putting in what I observe and thinking about how my art can help add to the conversation. So
Awesome.
again, as artists right now, we have so many gifts to share. We are keeping people entertained. We are showing people the future. We're helping people, uh, um, imagine a different kind of possibility. And so I'm drawing every day, even if it's just like, I have an iPad, and every night I make a new image, that I've been sharing more and more. And I'm also taking the time to just look at all the art I made before and think about, hey, you know what? Now the amount of eyeballs that's going to be able to look at my work is
Right.
so different.
Mm,
And the art world as we know it is going to completely transform. So I think it's also for all of you who have had a talent, whether it's DJing or singing, right now is a great time to offer that, to share that, and to see how it's received. And also, um, keep track of what's inspiring you and try to remix it, try different ways, because the gift of this, again, is the spaciousness to be creative.
right. Yeah, and I think something we've been talking a little bit about is like different perspectives on that space and whether that is like um, whether that brings pressure or it ignites the mind and makes you more creative. I think is up to the
Mm,
person. But
that's right.
it sounds like you're really leaning into it and like tapping into that creative side of yourself, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and I would add also, y'all, our minds create our reality. And so this is actually why, for me, getting into meditation is important, because we can do more to control our minds. Our minds eventually dictate our behavior. And so if you do find yourself sort of going to things that may cause you worry, just remember, think about how to pivot that, and think about, okay, this is what I don't want. What is the opposite of that, right? What could it look like? I don't want my community or my family to suffer, but what's the opposite of that? How can they be in abundance? And just constantly cue yourself up, because our brains think things are real. And so what you spend time imagining actually is what you begin to see and feel. And so the more we can imagine ourselves calm and imagine what joy looks like and actually participate in those things, it's really good for our mental health.
I love that. And then finally, like, what are some, maybe you have already taken on some new habits that you want to take into the next two
Yeah.
weeks or, the rest of our lives, really? Because I think we are going to change in every way after
Totally.
this. So, like, what are some things, some tips that you would give to other people and just remind yourself too that, like, these are things that I want to now put in place?
Yeah, well, this has been super interesting for me also, as somebody who cooks a lot. I was raised as a Latina.
Yeah.
And I had to cook my ass off. I still cook my ass off. And I'm really realizing about the gifts that I have and how when I think about the friendships that I want to create and even the people that I want to date, I just think about now how I have a different perspective, and that I am going to be looking for folks who actually have skills in things like cooking or gardening. And I think it's actually a good time to develop those skills. I think, especially, we live in a very gendered world in which cis men often there's this message around, oh, you don't have to cook, you can just order food. And of course, we have to support, restaurants and all that. But what we're realizing also is that as human beings, there's only a few things we need to really survive. And we need to be able to nourish ourselves, to figure out how to sustain ourselves. And that might mean, growing your own food or figuring out how to support your community. And so having different practices for me is I'm learning that I actually want to build a community that's an actual network of support. And in the past, that wasn't as important, but now it's important, especially as I'm entering my 40s. And I'm also like, we could be living with this for a long time. And also, it's beautiful to cook for each other. It's beautiful to look out for each other, to prepare food, and to really have skills so that together we can build resilient communities.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing, for being open, and just for the work that you're doing too, so that we can all step into a better future together.
Great. Thank you so much.
Of course, really appreciate it.